Movement ahead. Everyone stay ready. They're getting closer. Hold your fire.
Command, we've located the survivors. Area appears secure.
Right now, 3 people control more than you could ever imagine. Not presidents, not celebrities. 3 individuals who pull strings behind closed doors while you scroll on your phone, check your email, and live your life completely unaware. These aren't names you know, but they shape everything you do online. Silicon Valley isn't what you think it is. The tech companies you trust, the billionaires you've heard about, they're not really in charge. Someone else is. Someone older. Someone with generational wealth, so massive it makes Bezos look like he's saving for a car payment. But here's what most people don't understand. These 3 people aren't working alone. They're part of a family, a dynasty. And this family has been controlling global technology, finance, and influence for longer than you've been alive. They've stayed hidden because they're brilliant at it. Today, we're pulling back the curtain. We're showing you exactly how this family built their empire, how they maintain power, and why the world's richest people answer to them, not the other way around. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Long before Facebook existed, before Google changed the world, before anyone had a smartphone in their pocket, one family was already planning how to control global information. This wasn't luck. This wasn't chance. This was strategy. The family we're talking about didn't start in Silicon Valley. They started somewhere else entirely. Somewhere with old money. The kind of money that doesn't make noise. The kind of wealth that builds empires quietly, generation after generation. In the 1950s, after the Second World War ended, something shifted. The world was rebuilding. Technology was becoming important, and one family saw an opportunity that nobody else could see coming. They had connections everywhere. Military connections, government connections, banking connections. They understood something that most people completely missed. The future wasn't going to be about factories anymore. It wasn't going to be about agriculture or oil or traditional industries. The future was going to be about information. Who controlled information would control everything else. Your money, your choices, your thoughts, your relationships. Everything flows through information. So this family started making moves. They positioned themselves in the right places. They invested in the right technologies. They made friends with the right people. And most importantly, they stayed invisible while doing it. By the 1970s, the first real computers were being built. Personal computers started existing. The internet was just beginning as a military project. And this family already had people positioned inside these projects. Not as the famous names, not as the people everyone would remember, but as the advisors, the investors, the silent partners. One of the 3 main people we're talking about was born into this world, born into this level of wealth and power and influence. From childhood, they learned the rules of how global power actually works. Not from books, from experience, from watching their family operate. By the 1980s, the pieces were moving into place. Personal computers were becoming common. The internet was about to explode into public life. And this family wasn't just watching from the sidelines. They were actively shaping how it would all happen. They funded certain companies. They blocked others from growing too fast. They made sure that the technologies that developed were the ones that benefited them most. It wasn't obvious. It wasn't crude. It was elegant and sophisticated. Most of the famous tech billionaires you know, they're not actually the decision makers. They're the face of the companies. They're the ones who get the attention and the glory. But behind almost every major tech company, there are advisors. There are boards. There are invisible hands guiding strategy. And almost all of those hands belong to people connected to this one family. The second person in the trio wasn't born into wealth like the first, but they married into it. They married into this family. And when you marry into that level of power and generational wealth, you become part of the system. You learn how it works. You become essential to keeping it running. The third person is different. They're the operator, the one who actually moves pieces around on the board. They're not as visible as the other two, but they're the one making things happen. They're the one who made sure that certain companies succeeded and others failed. They're the one who negotiated deals that shaped entire industries. Together, these three people represent something bigger than any of them individually. They represent a family empire that has been quietly running the show for over 50 years. Most people don't understand how power really works at this level. They think the richest person is the most powerful. But that's completely wrong. The most powerful person is the one who doesn't need anyone to know they're powerful. The one who can make things happen without their name ever appearing in the news. And that's exactly what this family has mastered. By the 1990s, when the internet exploded into public life, this family was already perfectly positioned. They had already made the right investments. They had already positioned their people in the right places. They had already built the relationships they needed to control what happened next. The dot-com boom wasn't random. The dot-com crash wasn't random. The rise of certain companies and the fall of others wasn't random. It was all part of a larger plan. A plan that this family had been executing for decades. And most people had absolutely no idea it was happening. Once you understand that three people and their family were guiding the development of global technology, everything starts to make sense. Things that seemed random suddenly become obvious. Connections that weren't visible suddenly appear everywhere. The way this family built their system was genius. They didn't try to be the face of companies. They didn't want to be famous. They wanted to be invisible. They wanted to be the ones making decisions, while someone else took the credit and the attention. So they created a structure, a network, a system that allowed them to control everything without anyone knowing they were doing it. First, they positioned family members and trusted associates on the boards of major technology companies. Not as CEOs, not as founders, but as board members, as advisors, as investors, positions where they could influence decisions without being the public face. Second, they created investment funds, venture capital firms. These firms would fund new technology companies, but they wouldn't fund every company. They would only fund the companies that fit into their larger plan. The companies that would help them maintain control of global information and technology. Third, they built relationships with government and military organizations. They made sure that the technologies being developed would be useful to these institutions. And in return, these institutions would protect their interests and give them special access to new technologies before anyone else. Fourth, they created educational programs. They made sure that the smartest young people in the world would be trained to think in ways that benefited their system. Universities received massive donations. Research programs received funding. And in exchange, these institutions would produce people who understood how the system worked and wanted to be part of it. This is how you maintain power at this level. You don't do it by being visible. You do it by controlling the structures. You do it by making sure that the right people are in the right positions. You do it by creating networks where smart people want to join, because it's clearly the path to success. The beauty of their system is that most people don't even realize they're part of it. A young programmer gets hired by a tech company. They work hard. They do good work. They have no idea that they're working inside a company that was funded specifically because it fit into a larger plan. They have no idea that their work is being guided by decisions made at levels far above them. A government official tries to make policy decisions about technology. They have no idea that they're being influenced by people who have been strategically placed in advisory positions. They think they are making independent decisions, but they are working inside a system that was designed to guide them towards certain conclusions. An investor looks at an opportunity and decides to fund it. They feel like they're making their own decision, but they're actually working inside a network where certain opportunities are highlighted and others are hidden. Certain pieces of information are easy to find and others are hard to find. This is how you maintain power at a global level. You create systems where everyone thinks they're making independent choices. But the system itself ensures that most people will make the choices you want them to make. The three people at the center of this family understand something that most people don't. Control is more powerful than wealth. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't control the systems, someone else is in charge. But if you control the systems, you can have less money than your competitors and still be more powerful than they are. You can influence what they do. You can guide what they build. You can shape the entire future of technology. And that's exactly what this family has done for the last 50 years. Once you start looking for the connections, they're everywhere. It's like someone turned on a light, and suddenly you can see the web that was always there, invisible in the darkness. Every major technology company has people connected to this family somewhere in their structure. Sometimes it's obvious if you know what to look for. Sometimes it's hidden behind layers of corporations and investment funds and advisor positions. Take the largest social media companies in the world. The ones that have billions of users. The ones that shape what information billions of people see every single day. In each of these companies, if you trace back the funding, if you follow the board connections, if you look at who advised the founders, you find the same names appearing again and again. These names belong to people who are connected to this family, either directly or through marriage, or through business relationships that go back decades. The same thing is true for the largest search engines. The companies that control what information people find when they search for something. The companies that literally shape what billions of people learn and know and understand about the world. Again, when you trace back the connections, you find the same family appearing again and again. But it gets more interesting when you look at the technology that companies develop. Why does one social media platform get more investment and grow faster than another? Why does one search engine come to dominate the market? Why do certain technologies develop in certain ways? According to researchers and people who have worked inside these companies, the answer often comes down to decisions made by board members and advisors. Decisions that seem small at the time, but that shape the entire direction of a company. A decision to develop a certain feature. A decision to prioritize certain types of content. A decision to make algorithms work in certain ways. These decisions that seem technical actually have enormous implications for what information reaches billions of people. And these decisions are being made or influenced by people connected to this family. The connections extend beyond technology companies too. Media companies, financial institutions, government agencies, universities, think tanks. If you look at the boards of these organizations, if you look at who is advising them, you find the same family's influence appearing again and again. It's not a conspiracy in the way people usually think about conspiracies. It's not secret meetings in dark rooms. It's much more sophisticated than that. It's a network of people who all understand each other, who all benefit from the same system, who all work together to maintain the system that keeps them in power. Some of these people don't even fully realize what they're part of. They're smart people, ambitious people. They got opportunities because they were in the right place at the right time, or because they knew the right person, or because they went to the right school. They worked hard and achieved success. But the system that gave them those opportunities in the first place, that system was designed by this family. That system was built to ensure that certain types of people would succeed and certain types of people would not. This is how power at this level actually works. It's not about individual wealth or individual achievement. It's about being part of a network. It's about understanding the rules that everyone else doesn't understand. It's about having relationships with people who can make opportunities happen for you. The three people at the center of this family understand this better than almost anyone else in the world. They've spent their entire lives building and maintaining these networks. They've spent their entire lives making sure that the right people are in the right positions. And they've done it so well that most people have no idea it's happening. If you ask people who works for a social media company, they'll tell you it's the CEO and the management team. If you ask people who works for a search engine company, they'll tell you it's the founders and the executives. But ask the right questions to the right people, and you'll start to see a different picture. A picture where the real power is elsewhere. Understanding how this family initially built their power is interesting. But the real question is, how do they maintain it? How do they keep control when the world is constantly changing? When new technologies keep emerging? When new competitors keep appearing? The answer is that they've built systems that maintain themselves. They've created institutions and networks and relationships that don't depend on any one person. The power continues regardless of who is in charge at any moment. First, they maintain power through money. They have so much money that they can outbid anyone else when something valuable comes on the market. A new technology, a promising startup, a talented team. If it's important, they can always afford to buy it or fund it or recruit the people behind it. But money alone isn't enough. Lots of people have lots of money. What makes this family different is that they have influence in places where money can't directly buy power. They have influence in government, in educational institutions, in think tanks, in media organizations. This influence comes from decades of relationships, from putting people into positions where they owe the family favors, from being on the right side of important decisions that benefited powerful people, from understanding what different powerful people want and being able to help them get it. Second, they maintain power through information. They know more about what's happening than most people know. This isn't because they're smarter. It's because they have access. People tell them things. They hear about opportunities before others do. They understand market trends before everyone else sees them. This information advantage is enormous. When you know what's about to happen before anyone else knows it, you can position yourself perfectly. You can make investments that pay off enormously. You can make decisions that seem lucky, but that are actually based on information that nobody else has. Third, they maintain power through loyalty. They've built a system where smart, ambitious people want to be part of their network. People want the opportunities that come from being associated with this family. People want the knowledge and the connections and the resources that being part of their system provides. In exchange, these people remain loyal. They don't go public with what they know. They don't betray the family's interests. They work to advance the family's goals even when it's not in their own immediate interest. This creates a powerful structure where many thousands of smart people are working to advance the same agenda without most of them even realizing it. Fourth, they maintain power through adaptability. When technology changes, they change with it. When new industries emerge, they position themselves in those industries. They're not attached to any particular technology or company or industry. They're attached to the principle of controlling information and influence. So when the internet started taking over from traditional media, they didn't try to protect their old media investments. They invested heavily in internet technology. When social media emerged, they positioned themselves in social media companies. When artificial intelligence started becoming important, they started positioning themselves in AI. They're always ahead of the curve because they can afford to be. They have enough resources to experiment. They can afford to fund many different companies and keep the ones that work. They can afford to hire the smartest people in emerging fields. Fifth, They maintain power through secrecy. The fact that most people don't know they exist is part of what keeps them in power. They don't want their names in the news. They don't want to be famous. They want to operate in the background. This is actually a huge advantage. People are suspicious of visible power. If a billionaire tries to control things, people notice and resist. But power that's invisible, power that's exercised through boards and advisors and investment decisions, that's much harder to resist because people don't even know it's there. The three people at the center of this family are probably better at this than anyone else in human history. They've created a system that gives them enormous influence while keeping their names almost completely out of the public conversation. Most people have never heard of them. Most people don't know they exist. And that's exactly how they want it. Here's what most people miss about this family. They're not trying to control the world for power or money or ego. Well, not exactly. Those things are part of it. But there's something bigger. This family believes that they understand how the world should be organized better than anyone else. They believe that they're making better decisions about global technology and information than anyone else would make. And based on their results, it's hard to argue with them. They've built a system that works. Companies get funded. Technologies get developed. The internet functions. People can communicate and share information and connect across the planet. From a purely practical standpoint, the system they've built has delivered massive value to humanity. But the question is whether the benefits are worth the cost. The cost is that three people in their family have enormous power that they didn't earn democratically. Power that wasn't given to them by the public. Power that most people don't even know they have. They make decisions that affect billions of lives. Decisions about what information people see. Decisions about what technologies get developed. Decisions about which companies grow and which fail. Decisions that shape the future of human civilization. And most people have absolutely no say in these decisions. The unexpected twist here is something that very few people understand. The three people at the center of this family are actually trapped by their own system. They have to maintain the structures they've built. They have to keep everything working. They have to keep the networks functioning. If they stop paying attention for even a moment, if they make one wrong decision, if they lose the trust of the people in their network, everything falls apart. They have all this power, but they can never rest. They can never be completely free. They're bound by the system they created. This is something that the very richest and most powerful people in the world understand. Power at this level comes with an enormous cost. The cost of constant vigilance. The cost of always being strategic. The cost of never being able to truly relax or let your guard down. The three people we're talking about probably haven't had a vacation where they weren't thinking about business in decades. They probably can't have genuine friendships because they can never be sure if someone actually cares about them or if they're just trying to get close to their power. They've won the game of power and influence, but in winning, they've created a life that most people would find miserable. There's another revelation here that opens your eyes even more. The system they've built is so sophisticated and so powerful that it's becoming self-sustaining. It's starting to operate independently of them. The algorithms they created are making decisions they didn't specifically program. The networks they built are following patterns they didn't consciously design. The systems they set up are working in ways they can't completely control. In trying to maintain total control, they may have created something that's starting to escape their control. And they might not even realize it yet. This brings us back to where we started. Three people who control Silicon Valley. Three people who shape global technology. Three people who influence what billions of people see and think and believe. But here's the thing that you need to understand. You have more power than you realize. Every time you choose what content to engage with, you're making a decision. Every time you decide what to share, you're participating in the system. Every time you choose who to trust with your information, you're exercising power. The system depends on billions of people accepting it. The system depends on people not understanding how it works. The system depends on people thinking they're powerless. But if enough people understood how the system actually worked, if enough people decided to make different choices, the system would change. Not overnight, but over time, the power would shift. This is something that the three people at the center of this family probably worry about more than anything else. They worry about the day when the system becomes visible. When enough people understand what's happening. When the invisible power becomes visible. That day might be coming sooner than they expect. Here's the unexpected final piece of the puzzle. The three people who run Silicon Valley might not even be the real ones in charge. There might be people behind them. Families older than theirs with even more generational wealth. Institutions that have been running the show for centuries. But that's a story for another video. What matters is that you now understand something that most people will never understand. Power in the modern world isn't always visible. It doesn't always have a name attached to it. It works through systems and networks and relationships that most people can't see. The family running Silicon Valley isn't evil. They're not cartoonish villains. They're people who understood the future before anyone else did and positioned themselves perfectly to benefit from it. They built systems that actually work. They've created value. But they've also created a world where three people have enormous influence over what billions of people experience. And most people have no idea that's happening. The question is what happens next. Will the system continue? Will people eventually see through it? Will new challengers emerge to challenge their power? That's for you to decide. You're part of this story, whether you realize it or not. Let me recap what we uncovered. One family has been quietly building control over global technology for 50 years. They did this by positioning people strategically, investing in the right companies, and building networks of influence. They now make decisions that affect billions of lives. They maintain power through money, information, loyalty, and secrecy. And they've created a system that's starting to become self-sustaining and possibly beyond their control. Here's what you need to do if this opened your eyes. First, subscribe to this channel. More videos like this are coming about power, influence, and how the world really works. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss them. Second, like this video. It helps us reach more people who need to understand these things. Third, comment below with your thoughts. Do you think this family deserves the power they have? What would you change if you could? Your comments help build a community of people who think critically about how the world works. Fourth, I want to invite you to something deeper. Go to the link in the description and join our exclusive community where we dive even further into these topics. We've got research, sources, analysis, and conversations that go way beyond what we can fit into a video. Members get access to our newsletter, where I break down things like this every week. One final question for you. If you discovered that someone close to you was part of a system like this, what would you do?